you're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a poor little me.
Do you feel it?
Yes, we do.
A worldwide awakening is upon us. Welcome to the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Where we explore topics such as UFOs, aliens, banned medical cures, as well as classified secret knowledge. Come question your holographic existence. Share experiences from the other side. This is a show that will expand your mind as we decrypt the symbolic messages locked away deep within your DNA. And now, your guides for this magical journey. The hosts of the Universal Consciousness Show, Augie Nost and Diana Seraphim.
Hello, everybody. How is 2020 treating you so far? Well, we only got 1% of the year done so far, but it's going to be a good one. And for those of you that's going to stay with us, you are listening to the show for the Thinking Global Citizen. My name is Augie, I'm one of the hosts, and Diana is my co-host, and she is over in Germany. Hello, Diana.
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
All right. Now, before I introduce the guest that we have with us today, I want to tell you how you can connect with us also. You can visit our website at universal-consciousness-show.com. And by the way, it is down right now because there's been work done on it, so it'll be back up tomorrow. But write it down, universal-consciousness-show.com. And we're also on YouTube with the same name. And please subscribe to our channel if you like what you hear, because then you can get a notification when there is new shows coming out. And of course, you know how it works. When you click on that red button says subscribe on it, there is a bell next to it. Click that bell, and that's from where you get the notifications of the new shows. So for those of you that like to hear this again, you'll find us, of course, at our website. And also for those of you that is listening on KCOR Radio, that's at kcorradio.com. You can go into the archives under Universal Consciousness Show, and we are right there. You can listen to the shows as well. And we are on Twitter, iTunes, TuneIn, Alexa, Facebook, and a few other places. And also, if you're listening to the KCOR Radio website right now, there is this wonderful little feature there. Down at the bottom of the page, there is a donate button. If you like what you hear, we would love it if you would feel inclined to also show your gratitude by a donation. It encourages us to continue, and it tells us that we are doing the right thing. But if you can't, that's perfectly all right. We love you, and we are delighted that you are here listening with us. Because if you weren't, it'll be just Diana and me sitting here talking to each other, and that wouldn't be all that much fun for everybody. So, now, let's get to the guest. We have, returning to Universal Consciousness Show, Karen Holton. She's a delightful lady from Canada, up north. And before I get into actually who she is and what she does, I have to apologize to her. Because a few days ago when we were just talking on the phone about how to do this show, and she told me that she had about minus 35 degree temperature up there. And I just couldn't help it. I had to tell her what it was like in Tucson. And I know that was cruel, but I just had to. I'm sorry, Karen.
Oh, it's okay, Augie. You have to laugh because it's kind of harsh sometimes.
Now, Karen is working with orgone energy. And she has studied that quite, and she's making some devices that will help us actually to develop and create orgone energy, which is a form of life energy in our environment. This is going to be interesting because we're going to talk about that. She is also a talk show host on her show that's called Quantum Guides Show. And she is an ET contactee and an experiencer. And she has become an exopolitical ambassador with an intergalactic resettlement program. We've been hearing about that from many different people that are in contact with alien species and alien races, that there is a resettlement program if and maybe when becomes unworkable here on Earth. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too and see maybe what they are looking at, because some of these races out there, they also have access to the knowledge and the information in the future. So, and also she does an online course called Quantum Health Transformation Program, and that assists others to heal and evolve within our life and existence here as we know it. And you will find us at KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. She's got some tools and some things there that will make your life a little easier and more understandable to live. So I've been talking way too long here. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Hi, Augie. Hi, Diana. It's so lovely to be back. Yes, I know it's a bit strange because I wear several hats. You know, I do the orgone generators, I do the quantum health transformation, I do the ambassador work for the ETs, but it is actually all linked together because what I've learned has been from the off-worlders. And so I bring that back and apply it into my life. And that's how I'm able to come up with the quantum health, come up with the orgone generators, understand how energy works on a very high level.
Because of that, actually, we were talking before the show, and Diane, I had a question for you about how did it start? Diana.
Yes. Hello, Karen. Thank you so much for being with us again. I thought about, maybe in case not everybody knows you from our listener, maybe you can start by telling us how did it all begin, how this all began for you.
Oh, I'd love to. Now, keep in mind that all of these things all come together even though they seem to be unrelated. So I think the reason why I was chosen to do the work I do, and I'm not the only one, and I'm not special in any way, I'm an ordinary human just like everybody else, but there are some differences in my past that I think have made it so that I was a very good candidate. So if I could just go back very quickly into my history, my grandmother was a contactee, but in those days, and even today, there's so much stigma against mental illness and so much social dislike for these types of subjects that it was sort of kept very hush-hush. But she was changed, and then my mom was changed, but my mom, she believed, like most people, that the mainstream construct was the only reality there was, and there wasn't room for mom's experiences, although she did come out as an alternative health practitioner and used her skills that way. Then on the other side of my family, most people don't know this, but I was raised with a stepfather. My birth father had all kinds of hints that he also was a contactee, because he had guidance and he did some what we would call really strange things. For instance, he built a tiny little sailboat all by himself, and he went out and decided he was going to sail around the world. And he left from Vancouver, which is in British Columbia, Canada, on his little boat. He went to Fiji, he went to New Zealand, and he went to Japan. And then guess what? He got lost in the Dragon's Triangle. And I won't get in too much about that, but it's like the Bermuda Triangle, but on the other side of the planet. And my dad, he sent out Mayday, Mayday, and they never found him, his boat, nothing. He disappeared into thin air. So there's lots and lots of evidence of ET contact in my background. And I believe that my ancestors on both sides, my mom and my dad's side, were also altered so that we could communicate, because we're really not special, and yet we have these abilities.
Wow. Boy, that was quite a journey.
My whole life is a journey. Oh my goodness, it's so atypical. On the one hand, it's alienating socially, but on the other hand, oh my God, it is so great to be me.
Yeah, it is somewhat maybe alienating socially, but that part of the social arena, I am not that sad about alienating myself to.
True that.
Yeah, and
that's how this got started. And so I had started having I always, even as a young child, I liked to spend time alone, and I've always had these guides who I could communicate with, and so that is really how it all started.
Could you see them also? Could you see them and talk to them?
I can talk to them, but not see them. And it's the talking is not the way you and I talk. It's I have a question or a query, and I speak in my mind in English, but the response is more like spontaneous knowing. It's also downloads. A download is a little different. A download is a great deal of information that's given to me in one instant. So for my little brain to sort it out might take weeks, months, even years to get the full training that came with the download. And the quantum health transformation and the work I do with orgone generators came to me through downloads. So it's not like me talking to someone, although I do talk to them all the time out loud because I spend a lot of time alone, and it's just, I don't know, I just do it. But when they communicate back, it's spontaneous knowing, it's concepts, it's abstract concepts, it's also lucid dreams. It's almost like watching short little 15-minute or 20-minute or half-hour little videos, except it's in my head and I'm shown. Everything unfolds for me. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, those experiences are phenomenal. Can you ever remember the first one you had? How surprising that was?
Yes and no. I started having these experiences very, very young, and I just thought everybody had them. But because I was in a social environment where it was unacceptable, I had to shut that off. And I always kept going to different religions and more fundamentalist type religions where there was no talk about that. And so I very much hid that part of my life and didn't actually thought I was imagining a lot of it until later on I had my spiritual awakening, and then I kept getting all the supportive evidence. And there's just no way I could have imagined it. First of all, I'm just not that smart. I mean, it's not like I'm dumb or anything, but at the same time, I'm not an Einstein or anyone. How could I know what I know? Well, it's because it was given to me. So, but I got to tell you, the first really big, huge, surprising experience was one of an angelic visitation during a very rough time in my life. I won't get into it too much because it could be a show on its own. And that was the thing that really woke me up to realize that, first of all, we are dearly, dearly loved and cared for, every single one of us. Not one of us, in fact, not even a hair on our head is not counted. And so that means we have tremendous value. Why would all these beings who can go and do and travel and have all these things that a lot of us don't even imagine, and yet why are they so keenly interested in us? Because we are incredibly valuable. We're valuable to everything that exists, even the nature of reality. Mm-hmm. And this is part of my message, is because people are afraid to step out of the mainstream, and yet, oh my goodness, come on in, the water is lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to dwell just a little bit before we get to the really good part later on. we
Yeah,
uh, we
rising.
do you think that you're working with orgone energy, and do you think that you were led to that by the extraterrestrial presence because of the value and the importance of the orgone energy, then, and that it should be communicated to the people?
Absolutely, Augie. And I'll give you a little what happened to me just to illustrate this point. Okay, because it was given to me in a download that I needed to create and make these pieces. And I'd never even heard of them before. And I did some research and I stumbled across Carol Croft and her work with orgone. And of course, Wilhelm Reich and his work with orgone. And then I've also been fascinated by his contemporaries, you know, Freud and Foucault and those kind of people. So I started, I went, well, where am I going to get this stuff? How am I going to make it? And my brother, who's an intuitive artist, he created the first pieces for me. Now, whenever we're starting to do something that's kind of fringe in mainstream, it's a bit of a lonely place to go because often we just get laughed at and made fun of. It's very hard to get our work taken seriously, at least in the beginning. That seems to be the natural way. So at a couple of times I was going to quit. I was going to go, you know what? Nobody's interested in this stuff. Nobody believes me. And I just had it with me and I was relocating and I was going to put it in storage. And my guide said to me, and my guides are ET, angelic. There's different, I have quite an amazing array of guides. They said to me, no, you do not put that in storage. You keep it right by your bed because you're going to need it and you're going to need it soon. And I went, that's really strange. So I'm in the middle of moving and here I am revising my orgonite brochures and getting everything ready, and yet no evidence, none whatsoever, to give me hope in this area. I relocated, and in less than 2 weeks, there was a woman who went to see a psychic. Now, this woman, I can't give you her name because she's famous, and she's asked me to keep her name confidential, and I will. And but anyway, she went to see a psychic, and the psychic just had the type of ability to just go online and find things that were important. Found my brother's website, told her about his orgone generators, which were being distributed by myself, contacted me. She bought a couple of pieces, and it was really quite funny because the pieces originally cost twice as much as what they cost now because of production and issues I won't get into. But she ended up buying everything I had, and it turned out she's extremely intuitive and she's musically intuitive. You know, we all have our talents on earth, but we also have our intuitive talents, which bump everything up to the next level. And she was going out and buying them and giving them to other people and putting them into their homes, and everyone was finding so much relief.
So, Karen, I have another question for you before we go to another topic. I would like to ask how the organ transmitter that you are doing, the organ generator that you are doing and you are distributing, how they are working exactly, and what are the effects that they have on our bodies, that are the healing effect, they increase our energy, or how does it work exactly?
Oh, thanks for asking that question. That's a good one. Well, I'll give you several different explanations because they actually do more than one thing. Because I'm not a medical doctor, I can't say, oh, this will cure this and this will cure that, but you'll get a good idea when I give you the information on how they work as to what they can do for the body. They absolutely do interact with the crystals and the fluids within the body. That's how they work. So what they actually are made out of is crystals that are combined with metals, and they're inside of an organic resin matrix. When the resin cures, it shrinks and it puts pressure on the crystals. Once the crystals have pressure on them, they become what is called piezoelectric. They actually become electrically charged, and they start to vibrate with much more strength and much more efficiency than they would if they were just the crystal sitting on the table by itself. And so now what starts to happen is they absorb that invisible pollution from man-made technologies, which is called EMF, and it's not good for our bodies. And 5G is a big example of people are very concerned about modern technologies. So the orgone generators that I make absorb that energy and retune it into the frequency of the crystals. And crystals have been used for thousands of years for healing and for spiritual work. Why? Because there's an interreaction within the body, consciousness, and crystals. So now the orgone generators are absorbing what is not good for us and turning it into something that's very good for us. Plus, the shape that I put the orgone generators into and the choice of crystals I use and the symbols that I use on the orgone generators all contribute to shaping the orgone, which is being pulled from a sub-Planck or sub-0 point level into our reality. And so they work all that way. And on top of that, my extraterrestrial friends have taught me how to do quantum entanglement. There's a video I have on my website and my YouTube channel about how I do that, so that they work even better and they work in conjunction with each other. So they go out into the world and they carry their energy with them and they form a grid that has a healing positive effect on the earth.
Wow. Hearing you talking like that, I thought that this kind of organic generator is something that everybody should have at home, right?
Well, I agree with that 100%. Now, I have orgone generators because they're handmade and because I put so much into them. They're in limited supply. They don't come out of a factory. They don't come out of a sweatshop. I make sure that the ethics are clear and present in every aspect of what I do. And so they're beautifully handmade in the short supply. I only have maybe half a dozen of each different design, but I can't supply them to the whole world. However, when I sell out of what I have, I will be making some new designs. I'm very excited about that. And I agree, it would be wonderful if everybody had them in their home, especially near their technology and by their bed while they're sleeping would be wonderful.
This is good. So you mean if I have one near my bed when I'm sleeping, I don't have to worry about the radiation from the TV and the Wi-Fi and stuff like that?
Yes and no. It depends on how much of that electromagnetic frequency pollution you have. So if you're living, say, in an apartment building that has 400 Wi-Fi systems, I don't know that one small piece of orgonite will filter all of that, but definitely it's going to filter a large percentage of it, and that healing energy is going to be available to you while you sleep, which is definitely a step in the right direction.
So it will make a difference anyway.
Oh, yes.
Okay. This is good. And then you mentioned also that now they are also, you can also deliver in Europe, right?
Yes, I have opened it up to worldwide shipping. I haven't actually filled any orders for Europe yet. I am very much looking forward to that first experience, but I do have it open to worldwide shipping so that everyone can benefit from it if they choose to.
Okay, this is good. This is wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for the technical support here. And I hope everyone will buy one of them. And I for sure, I will order one.
Yeah, I just can't. They have to be experienced. You can actually, even holding them, if you're energy sensitive, you will notice the vibration.
Yes. Okay, so I think this was the explanation about this, and then we will come back after the break.
Wonderful.
Okay, so see you.
You're listening to the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Your weekly connection to the truth.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
worldwide.
Share your knowledge by calling our hotline number at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Call now.
Worldwide callers find us on Skype at KCOR Radio. It's time to abandon your fear and question what you think you know.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
More awakening awaits.
After this, after this, after this, after this, after this, after this. Are you ready to go?
Here we go, world.
You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
Going live in 3, 2, 1.
It's time, once again, to unravel the mysteries of the universe by connecting the dots to a higher consciousness. This is the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Now the world will begin hearing us.
Share your knowledge by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
It's as simple as that.
Find us on Twitter at KCOR Radio or use hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us on the live chat at KCORradio.com. Back to your enlightened hosts, Agi Nost and Diana Serafini.
Hello, hello. We are back with the Universal Consciousness Show, and we are talking with Karen Holton. We were talking before the break, and we had a little bit of a technical glitch there, but I think it's going to be worked out. So you may not even know it if you're listening to this. And I want to get on to a different subject. We know that Karen is an experiencer, and she has been in contact with an alien or more than one alien race. And I want to know, what are the aliens thinking of us? What is their culture like? How do they feel about freedom? How about, do they have families like we do? Gosh, Karen, I am all ears.
Oh, okay, Augie. First of all, I need to shock everybody a little bit, because we're used to believing that we're at the top of the food chain. We're at the top of the mountain. We are the highest evolution of physical beings. And we're not. And the other thing is, these beings, they are free. They have not lived for generation after generation in a mainstream, artificially constructed reality with a ruling class, possibly a million years ago, or maybe 10, 20,000 years ago, but not for a very long time. And so for us, that we've either been steeped in the construct, the mainstream, or some of us are still there and some of us are really outside the box. But we tend to think of things in human terms. And so the first thing to do is to try to step out of that into what it might be like to truly be a free people. So my extraterrestrial friends are free people and have been free people for thousands of years. So that allows them this freedom of culture, this freedom of health, this freedom of evolution. And to be honest, Augie, they don't really think much about us at all. We're out in the middle of the backwater, blowing each other up, and not even being very nice to each other, and they don't really have anything to do with us, which is why they're not going to come in here and rescue us. It's up to us to make meaningful contact by raising our own frequency and evolving to a point where we can connect with them through universal consciousness, because they're very, very spiritual beings. They're not religious, but they're very, very spiritual beings.
And I know you are more like an exopolitical ambassador for an intergalactic resettlement program. Is that why maybe there is behind it all a resettlement program, but not for all of mankind, maybe only for the ones that qualify in their spiritual thinking and their vibration? Could that be it?
That's absolutely it. And I'll tell you why, is because first of all, if you really look at our culture and our society and our cultures, I guess, here on Earth, you can see why they would not want to take us and move us out into the universe or into the galaxy and just spread the infection. Why would they want to do that? They wouldn't. That wouldn't make any sense at all. And so what they're doing is first of all, it's up to us to put it out there to them. And I highly recommend Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 movement for that. We put it out to them, and then they connect with us. And then on a very personal level, the training starts. And the training is basically the awakening process, and then what I call the ascension process, which not all awakened beings choose to want to ascend. That's a difficult path, a very high spiritual path. It can be very physically uncomfortable path, but that is the path. Now, I want to say something about the intergalactic resettlement program. This has been going on for thousands of years, and it's not just for us, because planets are unstable. Planets go through cycles. Planets go through all kinds of stuff. Solar systems collide with other solar systems. There is so much going on out in space, we can't even imagine it. And so the thing is this program has been set up to basically, when beings on any specific planet are ready to be incorporated into the resettlement program, then that becomes an option. It's been going on for a long, long time, and it'll go on forever, because it's basically the way the human, or I would say our species, because most of the beings that I deal with in that program are very much like us. Not a whole lot of difference. And I've got quite a few videos. I just made 2 more yesterday about what they look like, how they interact, what their culture is like, things like that. So what I want to say is that their culture is very, very love-based, very much on compassion and empathy, very much a feeling rather than a speaking type of communicating that goes on between us. And I'll give you an example, like here on Earth, everybody has a name. That's because the countries we live in are generally corporations who own our physical bodies. And that's why we have names. Well, there is no such thing as all that when you're dealing with more advanced races. And I would say especially within our own species, which are humanoids. And so these beings don't have the brainwashing. They're very, very free. And so it's hard for us even to imagine what that might be like. In some ways, though, there are some things, Augie, that are universal. Like, for instance, when a mother and father hold their newborn baby, that is something universal across the galaxy as far as I understand. Love, of course, is very dominant. And then, of course, there is sex. And the culture of sex is very different than on Earth because there are free people.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that you had made some videos on how the aliens live and so on. Mention here also, and we will also do it at the end of the show, where can they see your videos?
Oh, my YouTube channel, and it's Karen Holton, and it's KarenHolton. And you can find me on YouTube, and I might be branching out to some other platforms. And of course, I have my website, www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. And under the free resources tab, there's just oodles and oodles and oodles of information, articles I've had published, videos on how to work with orgone, how to make it really work for you, all my experiences in the intergalactic resettlement program, just tons and tons of information there. And
oops. That's what I get for not muting the phone. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
All right. Yeah. You mentioned something here about sex in space, and I want to get to that, but I want to ask you a question first.
Sure.
What does it look like inside the ships? What do you see when you get on there first? Maybe in the hangar bay, maybe the first time, but how do they do breakfast? Where do they go to enjoy themselves? And what is their life, their everyday like for the people that is on the ships?
Okay, well, first of all, I did a video called Orientation on the Big Ship, and so I recommend everyone go and watch that. But I'll tell you, there was an orientation process, so no one's going to be thrown into anything that's going to make them feel unduly uncomfortable, because that's not the culture on the ships. And each ship is enormous. It could be compared to a small country, or some of them maybe even a big country. They are enormous. And many of these ships, they are like planets because the people live there. That's where they live. That's where they were born, and that's where they do what they do. And so there is not, so if you can think of them as being like different countries, and they have their own culture. So not every big ship has the same culture, but there's a very high level of tolerance and compassion, and the intention is pretty much the same from all the experiences I had. And that is something I would refer to as like love and cooperation. So what happens is it's a free resource. It's a resource-based economy. Nobody uses money, just nobody. You don't need it, and you can get anything you want. So that means that your time is freed up to pursue what you love. So first thing is, everybody loves to get out of bed in the morning because we've got these amazing days ahead. And most beings like us are very social. And so we often get together to eat. And the food, while we're on the ships, we're vegan. And all the food is grown on the ship. So this is the other thing I need to tell you, is that the ships are not like our airplanes made out of plastic and metal and foam. They're actually alive. They're intuitive. So for instance, when you, and also we're all able to communicate on a what we would call a psychic level. We don't use words. So the hardest thing about being on the ship is to stop talking, because then we can feel, we can emote, and we can communicate that way with the other beings. So anyway, generally, food grows everywhere because there's a relationship between us and our live food. And so we will eat what we want to eat, and it's prepared in all kinds of lovely ways. There are a lot of people that are really into preparing food and making it delicious and beautiful. And then what happens after that is generally we all wander off to the baths, because water is something universally adored by humanoid beings. And we often will spend some time just socially in the baths. And while you're in the bath, by the way, there's no bikinis and there's no swimsuits, because they don't care about where we have body hair and where we don't, or what our physicality looks like, because the intention of love and harmony operation is so strong on these ships. So generally after that, we go off and we do all kinds of different things. So some of the capacities that I've filled while on ship are, of course, training, just being a person that needs to learn a lot. But there's also a lot of political type meetings, and they're really boring, but somebody has to go and stick up for humans on Earth. And that's what I do a lot. So I often will say, okay, when policy is being created in space, and when, what to do about different things, and plus right now is a critical time on Earth. You'd have to be, live in a hole in the ground not to see that there's something going on our planet, between our weather and space weather and politics and economy, and goes on and on and on. Yep. And so, there might well be, and I'm not saying there is, because it's their hope that we will get our poop together. I normally use a different, harsher word, but this is radio. They're hoping that we get our poop together so that we can rise up to and cure our own issues and our own problems on Earth, because there are always ways of fixing things and coping with things. But if things get so bad, yes, those of us who want to raise our frequency, learn more, will be included in that program, and partly thanks to people like me, and I'm not the only one, there's all kinds, just a lot of people don't have their memories. who go and act as ambassadors, and we tell them about the human condition, and we tell them, yes, it appears that we're this way, but this is reasons why we do things the way we do, that kind of thing. And so there's a lot of that kind of work I've been involved in. I don't talk a lot about it because it's really boring, but and then, of course, I've been involved in actual resettlement projects where I've done training to be able to go down, like in the last show I did with you, Augie and Diana, we talked about that, how I went to some of these different worlds, and it's very like scientific expedition where we're gathering data and information, because it's very important when we go down to other, start to resettle different planets, that we don't cause the same grief that we've caused from where we're from. Yeah. And, the ecological footprint and all of that, it's all very, very important because it's love-based. I don't know if I answered your question. I got off.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, how do you get on to the ship? Do you travel physically? Do you go end up in the bay, flying there in flying discs, or do you mentally go there?
Oh, there's a lot. Actually, there's quite a few different ways of getting to the ship, and there is ways of being there with physicality and ways of being there without physicality. So ways of being there without physicality would be like a lot of these meetings I do. I don't need to be on the ship physically in order to go to them. They often happen while I'm asleep or while I'm lucid dreaming, and then I'm involved in that. So I'm still at home in my little bed. But there's also, they're very advanced, so this might blow some people's minds a little bit. And for those of you that have done some research, this will sound familiar, is they're able to transfer our consciousness. So we can have our consciousness transferred into, I classified as 3 different kinds of clones. The first clone would be like a one-size-fits-all clone, and it's your personality and who you are that shines out, and that's why it's actually quite interesting, the diversity of beings who actually have the same physical clone, but they look, and you can identify them very much as being different kinds of beings. Then there is the actual clone, and I'm very privileged that I actually have a copy of me on one of the ships, at least one of the ships that I know of, and so I'm actually able to go and be me. Of course, it's a healthier version of me. Human bodies don't always get transferred onto the big ships and into the different kind of habitats because we're really toxic. People don't realize, and not to get too much into this, but people don't realize how we've been used on planet Earth. They put fluoride in our water. Why? Not to help us, and maybe it dummies us down, but it also, our bodies become filters. And so our bodies are filtering all kinds of toxic waste that's being put in our toothpaste, being put in our water, the air, and I don't need to go on and on. Those who are familiar already know what I'm talking about here. So you wouldn't really want to take your body there, but there might be a time when we can. So anyway, so I have a physical body there, and I can use that when I go. And then there's also a third kind of clone, really interesting, and they will print you out a clone that has special qualities. So like, say for instance, you're going to go down to a planet and do a specific type of work, and 10 fingers and 10 toes doesn't necessarily give us what we need. We might need something else. Who knows what? It could be anything. It could be wings. It could be technology. And so that we can get our consciousness put into that so that we can do specific jobs while we're out there. And because it's a real harm reduction. Everything out there is very harm reduction. There's nobody wants to hurt, scare, frighten, harm anybody. That's an Earth thing, not out there.
Yep. Now we are getting towards the end here, but I promised that we were going to talk about how does the extraterrestrial look on this concept of sex.
Okay, well, first of all, we just have to quickly divide sex up into some kind of subcategories. And when we're talking about sex, are we talking about love? because love is universal, and we show love by giving pleasure to other beings. So for instance, you might want to cook a beautiful, delicious meal for someone you love. Well, on the ships, and especially in this type of environment, it's very sex positive. And so to give someone that beautiful, pleasureful experience could be attached to love. Then there's reproduction, and that's a completely different thing. It can involve love, and it can involve orgasm, or it might not. And that's more of a technical thing, and that is not regulated, but very much documented, because it's very interesting, and all the different species of humanoids are interested in how we evolve when we share our DNA. Then there's orgasm, and orgasm is not something that's kept in a closet or on the internet. Orgasm is something that is a part of health, just the way eating and sleeping and meditating and all those things that make you a healthy, full being, and it's part of that. And the sex can happen physically, and it can also happen on a psychic level. And actually, psychic sex is way better than actual even physical sex. With physical sex, there's a lot of trying to figure this all out, right? And we don't have that with psychic sex. And then one of my favorite sex, I don't sex and tell too much, but I'm going to tell you one thing is I have a friend who's an aquatic. He's a very handsome man. And he just liked me, and I don't know why, but on this particular adventure, we had aquatics aboard. Now, they're not really aquatics because the fluid environment they're in is actually not water. It has the same oxygen content as what we breathe, and we can actually go into their environment, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, they use sonar for stimulation, and I was walking by, and he just sent me a little, as I was walking by, he just sent me a little sonar thing, a little ping, and I had this little orgasm, and I looked up, I went, whoa, what was that? Where did that come from? I was as surprised as anybody, and I turned in, and he was smiling at me, and he was trying to give me a compliment. So we need to get back on here again and talk more about aliens, because it's really a lovely subject and nothing to be afraid of, and very interesting.
Actually, there is some medical research here done by Dr. Wilhelm Reich. He wrote he discovered the organ life energy, and he says in one of his books, he says no person will ever be totally healthy without having orgasms, because when the orgasm happens, it releases organ energy in the body, and it floods the body with organ energy, which is a healing energy. And back in the 1940s, when he discovered this, the head of the medical association came out on radio, and he said, we have found the cure for all disease. And then, of course, it went underground, because Dr. Fishbane, that was the head of the medical association at the time, he could not become a partner, could not make any money on it, so he destroyed Wilhelm Reich.
And now you know why I'm so excited about organ generators and orgonite, because we have been shut down sexually very much. We've even been shut down as to eating. We've been shut down to so many things, because that's where our power is.
I know. And we are down to 3 minutes before the end of the show. So let us know where they can reach you and get in touch with you, watch your shows and watch your material, and buy your organ generators.
Okay, there has been quite a few copycat organ generators out there using my brand name, but Zen Dome's Orgonite or Zen Dome's Organ Generator is my trademark, and it's registered, and you can only buy my orgonite from my website. And so all these other companies that are using Zen Orgon and all of that, they are not affiliated with me at all. And so my website is www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, and KarenHolton healthcoach.com, and Karen Holton, spelled the same way, YouTube, my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. It would mean ever so much to me. And again, I have tons of free resources on both of those sites. And lots of videos on how Orgonite works. I've got a video called Introduction to Orgonite, how shapes and symbols affect orgone. What is quantum entanglement, which is the process I do to it. I'm the only one that does that to Orgonite to actually really maximize its power and help it really benefit you.
That sounds wonderful. And I have been studying orgone for a long time, and a good friend of mine, Dr. James DeMeo, he wrote a book also, the Orgone Accumulator Handbook. That I read that book actually twice, and that totally supports what you're doing. And the research, the medical research and the technical research he's doing in there is phenomenal. So here we go, Karen. We got to do another show like this sometime.
Oh, I'd love to. And Diane, I wanted to tell you, I've also opened up my sales to the whole world.
Oh, really? This is very
worldwide
nice, because
shipping.
the last time you didn't have it in Europe.
Yeah, I do now. It's worldwide shipping, so I just want to let everybody
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. And we are down to the end, so we'll see you next week. And thank you very much, Karen.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Your weekly guide to a deeper understanding of the all that we are.
Well, in a few years, it will be a matter of common sense to very many people that they're one with the universe. It'll be so simple.
Live Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, hosts, or their guests, please visit universal-consciousness-show.com. That's universal-consciousness-show.com. Remember, there's a shift coming, a new earthly paradigm, a shift to universal consciousness.
Universal Consciousness.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR